Hello guys, good morning from here. I am here again, so we are going to be coding together in Rust, and this is a beginner kind of coding flow. So like I said before, while I am coding, I'll be talking about the why, the house, and any other important detail. So it's gonna be a long video. So today we are going to be working on a simple project called a line numberer. So it takes a file path and prints every line prefixed with its line number. So we will have an optional argument like start to control what number to start counting from. Okay, so I already have a file which is called groceries.txt. So what this program does is it takes this file path and reads the content, then prefix it with a number. So it's going to be something like 1, right? 2, 3, and so on up till the end. So the last one is going to be 17, right? So if we have a start argument or flag, let's say our flag is start 10, so this is going to be 10, 11, 12, 13 till the end. Okay, so this is what our program is expected to do. Let me edit this so it stays clean. Okay, and I'm going to remove this. So this is one of the projects I have that I am supposed to do. I have about 10 of them, so we're going to be doing it together. So first of all, since we are getting this from the environment, we're going to create a variable called args. Last time we had args, so we have been dealing with the file system. So args comes again. So the variable will be called args, and what kind of data is this? We'll put the colon. We'll be collecting the inputs from the environment and storing them. So one of the data type that will be great for that is the vector. So we say VEC, and it's going to be a vector of strings because that's what we are getting, the argument. So a string, not strings. And where are we getting this from? So that's our right hand, right? We are getting it from the environment we are working on. So we are going to be using the standard library. There is an environment module. Like I said before, a module is a collection of related functions. So inside the environment module, we have a lot of functions that work with your PC's environment. So the environment module can be accessed through env. It's in the standard library. So if you say env double colon, you say args, because we want to call the arguments function. It returns the arguments that this program was started with. So if we say args, so normally if the program wants to be started, we say cargo run right? The program has been started. But if we say cargo run and then we add anything here, let's say hello dot text, now we are starting this program with this argument. So like the function says here, returns the arguments that this program was started with, normally passed via the command line. So that is it. We want to collect whatever is passed through the command line. So this returns the argument. So where do we want to put them? Because there is the type notation here, vector of string, we now use the collect. So it transforms an iterator into a collection. Because these arguments iterates over the entries from the command line, collect takes them and puts in a args vector. So we say collect, we now put the last semicolon. So this function will do its job. If we want to test it, we can use this to test that. Okay, so let me save this and just say cargo run hello there whatsoever text. So our argument has been collected. Always remember the first argument is at index 0 and it's the file name or file path where you're working from, like the name of the program. So this is our own argument, hello there.txt. Okay, so let me clear this and then we go back. So we now have the argument set to be collected. So let's create a function, and the purpose of this function is to help us work with this argument. So if there is an error or if it was successfully collected, it will be shown here. So right now we just have the argument, but we want to access the important part of the argument, which is our file path. As we can see, takes a file path. Okay, so since I started learning, I mostly use this config whenever as a function, whenever the goal of this function is where the program is starting from. Okay, so we're going to be naming our function config, right? So what is this function taking to do its job? What does it need to do its job? It needs some arguments. So we are going to be naming this parameter args. And what type of data is that? It's here is a vector of string. So we want to get a reference to a collection of string or a slice of string. So instead of just passing vector string, this would be like too hard. So we are always expecting a vector of string. But if we do this, it's going to be more moderate or lenient, because this is going to be a reference to a slice of string. So whether it's a vector or not, so long it's a slice of string, so long it's a collection of string, that will work. So the function needs args, which is a reference to a string slice, to do its job. Is that all it needs? Yes. So if this function works, so now there's going to be a possibility either works or fail. The entry into the command line can be incomplete, can be incorrect, or anything. So there's a possibility of failure. This is where Rust error handling comes in. So to do that, we are going to, the function is going to be returning a result type, and it's one of the types for handling errors. So if this succeeds, what are we expecting the function to return back to us, or to the caller? Let me use caller because that's more idiomatic. Don't know if that's the right word. So what does this return to the caller? Since we are trying to access or get our file paths, so this should return a string. We're not going to be returning a reference to a string because there's no place we are getting a reference from, and it should be an own string. So if it goes out of this function, it will not be dropped. It will not be a lingering reference. That will cause an error. So this is supposed to return a string if it succeeds. If you know a results type is an enum, returns an OK, which is for the success, error for the failure. So if this fails, what are we expecting the function to return? It should return an error. So the file path should be read. And if it's not read, what error should it be? Now we are going to do that ourselves. So the error is going to be a static string. Okay, so this is going to leave for as long as the program is running. So because we are trying to handle error before anything else, let's say let's file, because that's what we are trying to get. Let's file paths be equal to, which we are not ready yet, so let's handle the error paths. So how do we check if there's an error? Is if the entry is not up to the required number. So we need one entry, which is the file paths. The other one is optional, the start, but we are going to add it. Okay, it's optional because even if you don't add it, the program should still work. So you don't want to add a custom start value. So it should number your entries starting from 1, which is normal. So to check the error, we say if the argument, if the length of the argument args.len is less than, because we have two arguments, one is default, which is the program's name, the second one is our entry, so that is 2. If the length of the items in the arguments or in the vector is less than 2, that means there is a problem. And what do? We want the program to stop and then return the error. So to end the program, here we use the return keyword. So if we hover over the return, it says a return marks the end of an execution path in a function. Okay, the return doesn't necessarily mean it's an error. You can return a value. So but here we are returning an error. So because this is going to be an error, we'll wrap it inside the error type. This is what result expects. There should be an error type. So ERR, the value goes in here. So return ERR. Now the value should be inside here. We will remove this. And what are we expecting in the error is a static string. So a static string is going to just be put inside double quotes. So we are going to say incomplete arguments. That makes sense. Incomplete argument. Let's just keep it simple. So this is the error. So we have that. Now let's work on, if this is not the case, then the case should be a successfully accessed file path. So let file path, we want to store the argument that was entered inside a variable called file path and return it as a string. Okay, so where do we get the file path? We get it from the argument, from here, from our args argument. So args, and it's at index 1, because 0 is the name of the program. We saw it before. So 1 is where the entry is, the file path we entered. Okay, so because this is a string, it cannot just be automatically copied. Let's just okay, if we get the file path here into this variable, we'll also wrap it in an OK value, because it's what the results expect. Okay, and we put the file paths inside there. You can see it's a string type. So let's save this. Okay, now the error is cannot move out of type string, a non-copy slice. So we need to clone this or duplicate it, because it cannot be automatically copied by Rust. Rust can copy some types like integers, because they have the copy trait, but string does not. So we use a method called clone, right? So this is clone. Let me just type it out. So returns a duplicate of the value. So if we save this now, it should clear out. Yes. So we now have this doing what we expect. If there's an error, just return it and tell the user incomplete argument. Okay, now that we have this function set up, let us call it and save its return value. So we now say let file path, because that's what we want to get. Let file path be equal to, we call the function config. So what does config expect? It expects us to pass a reference to a collection of strings, a reference. Okay, so we are borrowing. Now because this is a result type, we need to unveil or assess the values that are returned, either a success or a failure. So there are methods for this, but because we want to handle the error properly without terminating the program like panic, we use unwrap. As the name implies, it unwraps whatever it gets because it comes like a package. Not really a package, but sounds like a package. So we use unwrap or else. So this unwrap or else tries to get the OK value. See, it returns the contained OK value or whatever value we compute here. So this is a closure. It's like an anonymous function. So whatever value we compute here will be returned if the OK value is not gotten, and whatever value we are returning here should be equal to what we expect. So if the OK value is a string, it should be a string or maybe a static string. So it should match one of these. Okay, so we want to return the error. We would just the closure here will be, we'll get a parameter or an argument as err, which is error. So what do? We say print. So this is different from the print line because this prints to the standard error. If you look at equivalent to the print, except that output goes to standard error instead of standard output. All right. So what should we print? It's just the error from the function. So we put our braces, and then if you are a beginner like myself, some of this should be making sense. Okay, so this is because this is a statement that we have to put a colon here, but this is showing an error because expected string found a unit type, found nothing, does not do anything, just prints. So but it's supposed to return something, but we don't want to return, we don't have anything to return, so we are returning something called the never type. So we'll call the process from the standard library. We call the process module. Okay, and then inside that there's one called exit. So this terminates the current process with the specified exit code. So this is a function that says I will return nothing. Because there's a return there, it allows ROS automatically takes it. It works everywhere where you don't want to return something, but you want it to look like it returns something. Okay, so this exits one says that okay, our program exited because of an error. If this is 0, it's because of success. It's related to C. Yeah, if I can remember, yes, it relates to C. I don't know how to code in C. I think I've seen some of the syntax before. Now that we have set up the file path, let's proceed. Now there is another argument, which is the optional argument, the start value. So what if the user includes a start value? If the user includes a start value, we need to use it. So what should we do next? We say let's start equal, this is going to need a function. Like I said, functions help us to split jobs or roles. So one function does a particular thing, hands it over to another function that takes it, and stuffs like that. So let us create a function called start value, because we want to get the start value. Okay, so what does this function need to do its job? It needs some arguments, right? And what is the type? A reference to a string slice, because we are going to be assessing the input from our command line. Okay, so if excuse me, if this function works or not, because there might be a failure, we are going to return a result type. So if there is a success, what are we expecting to get? We are expecting a start value. What is that value type? It's an integer, an unsigned integer. It cannot be signed, because signed gets the negative part. So unsigned is U32. Unsigned will be I32, but we don't want that. We want an unsigned 32 bits integer. So if we get an error, what should it return? It should return a string. Okay, because the error can be it could be multiple errors. It could be that the start value was not entered at all. It could be that the start value was entered, but it's not a number. Okay, or it could be that there is no start flag or start argument. There was no start argument passed. So the errors, there are multiple edge cases. Okay, so we're going to be returning a string if there's a failure. This just reminds me of the popular meme that says, "You are a failure, but you are not a failure. We are not failures." So we have the structure of the function now set, what it gets, what it needs. What it needs and what it returns. Now what do? We would now, first of all, because when we are passing this argument, let's say cargo run. So first of all, we get the file path, okay, file.txt. What follows is the start flag, and then the value we want, let's say from 10. So we'll need to get the position of start, because we don't know what our users will do. They might decide to type something else before the flag. Users are unpredictable, okay? So instead of just saying the start is at index, the start flag is at index 2, instead let's get the position using the program instead of setting a fixed position. So let's say let position, we want to get the position of the start argument from the command line. So let's say the position is equal to, we access the arguments, okay, we call a method that goes through each value of the argument, each of them, which is called the iter. So you can see it says returns an iterator over the slice. The iterator uses all items from start to end, but once it gets to what we are looking for, it returns that. So iter dot, we want to get the position of something, so searches for an element in an iterator returning its index, so we call position. There are a lot of them, so sometimes I just go through them to see. You can see count, this is going to return how many iterations from the beginning to the end. So there are a lot of them, very useful. As we keep solving, we will be seeing the use cases of these methods. So we call the position. As you can see, position returns an option type, which is for handling errors. So it either returns something or nothing. If it returns nothing, it should be an error. Something, you use whatever it gives you, just like the results type that returns OK or an error. So these are two ways to handle errors. So what's the position of what? So let's say the position of an argument. This is also a closure. It's, like I said before, it's an anonymous function, not like the one we do with the FN and everything. So we are looking for one of the arguments. If you see an argument arg that is equal to this start, that is equal to start, so this is what we want to get. So go through the arguments in the command line one after the other. If you find one that matches this, return the position. So what does it return? It returns the index. So okay, it takes a closure that returns true or false. It applies this closure to each element, and one of them returns true. Then position returns index. It is wrapped inside sum. Okay, I found something. Here it is. Open it and you see it. Sum index. Now, because position, this is going to be a bit tricky, but I hope I can go through it. So because position, let's hover over it, is an option, we need to unpack it. We are trying to make sure at the end of the day we either return what we got or an error. So we would use the match control flow based on pattern matching. So what are we matching? Position. So we want to this is showing because we have not done anything, we have not matched any of the patterns. So position can either return something or nothing. Now, did we get anything? Let's say none. Okay, okay, this is option. Did you get anything? Sorry. No. So what do we do if nothing was found? So start was not found. So if start was not found, that means the user did not enter any start flag. So the user entered only cargo, run, and the file path. So there is no start flag. Okay, that means the program should work normally. Normally means it should start counting the lines from 1. So this is by default. So if nothing was found, like the position of start was not found, we would decide our start value will be 1. So because this is a result type, whatever we are getting should be enveloped inside either an OK or an error. Okay, so we say OK 1, right? So no start flag, the default is 1. What if we find something? Let's call it I. So if we find something, so I is the position of start. Okay, so what we will do is, what should we do? I is the position of start. So now that we have found the position of start, we need to use that position to get the next value after start. So the next value is what we want. So we say args, we go through our argument dot, we want to get. Now why I'm using get is because it returns something or nothing instead of we believe something is there. If we just say, if we just pass this directly, let's say index 3, there might be a problem. So expected result, okay, we found something, we put it inside OK, right? So this expected you that you found string. So this is the position of our this, that's why it's showing string. So if we found the position, what should we do next? We try to use that position to get the next value. So we say args, let's get the next value dot get. What are we getting? We get I, right? I plus 1. So I plus 1 is the next value. Right? Yes, this is string. Okay, we say args dot get I plus 1. Okay, so what should we do next? We try to get the start value, and then the position of the start value, the index. If that does not work, we say ask.get I plus 1. Now we are getting the value after the start flag. So this value can be a number or not. Okay, we do this ask. So what should we do next? Let's see. Okay. Okay, so we check if this is how it gets tricky. We say we get I, so let's check if we're able to get this. So it's going to be a long match, a long chain. If we're able to get this, so were we able to get it? So get returns something or nothing. So if we're not able to get it, right? So we return an error. So here we use the format, because this creates a string using interpolation of runtime expression. So because the error is supposed to be a string, we say error, wrap it inside an error. So we say the error is so we did not find any value after the start. Say no start value in argument. So that's the error. So what if there is a start value? So we found something, let's call it value. What should we do? We check if this value is a number or not. So we do match value. We do another check. We say value. We try to convert this value to an integer to know if it will work. So with this string type has a method called pass. So we try to let's hover over it. Passes this string slice into another type. So it can be any other type. Okay. So we want to pass this to a U32, which we want. So this is I think it's called fish something. I remember a fish. I've forgotten, but it should be. There's a name for this, but yes, this is how it's done. One of the ways. So we try to pass value into a U32. Okay. So if we are able to pass the value after start to U32, we will return it. So okay, let's say we were able to pass the value, right? We call it I. Now we will return the value. That means we found what we are looking for. All the checks work. But because we have a result type, we need to wrap it again inside the success. Okay, we wrap the value inside the success. You can see I is U32. Okay, so but if we cannot if it could not be passed, let's say instead of a number the user entered an alphabet, it cannot be passed to a number. Okay, but if the user entered something like a digit, even if it's like a string, it can be passed, right? Okay, yes, this is what I was trying to say. Turbo fish. Instead of annotating, instead of this, we can use this, the turbo fish. When I started learning, I got used to this. So back to the work we have. So if we are able to get the value passed to an unsigned 32-bit integer, we'll return it and wrap it inside the success case. But if we get an error, let's call the error E. Okay, so what should we do? We now return it as a string. We talk about the error. So the error, we can put the error here, or because we already have the error type. Okay, as you can see, int error, we'll just use it here directly instead of saying anything, although we can just add error here. And then what is the error? So this is supposed to be wrapped inside an error type. There's a lot of wrapping. ERR. Okay, so right, so if there's an error, it's going to be wrapped here. So let's save this. Okay, oh, this is supposed to, sorry, yes, there was no parenthesis. Rust is very good in showing errors and helps you to know what is wrong. So now let's since we now have the start value, let's do okay, before we do some testing, let us try to get the start value. So we say let start equal, we call start value, which is the function, then we pass it arguments, a reference to argument, because that's what it needs, a reference. As you can see, a reference to a collection of strings, and that's our argument type. We also need to unwrap it because this is a result type, so we do the same thing, unwrap or else. So or else, let's write a closure. So we're also going to use the ePrint, and then if we cannot get the start value, what is the problem? It should be an error, so we put it here, and then it should print the error we've got. You can see string because that's the error type. Then this expects something, but this is just going to just print a print to your output. It does not return anything, but it expects you to get something, to get an OK or error type. So let us use our process that returns a never type. Sorry, it's supposed to be exit, not one. Yep. So process.exit. Let's close this. Okay, and save this. Okay, so we have been able to get the 5 parts and the start value. Sorry, I'm not adding comments here. The explanation and the flow is like comments. So let me clear this, and now we have our 5 parts. We have the stats, we have called it, both of them. Now we have one last thing to do, is to read the file and print what we need. So let us create another function So we are dividing the jobs between the functions. So this is going to be read, call it read file, because that's what it's doing, right? Yes. What does this needs to work? It needs a file path. So let's call it file path. And the file path is a reference to a string. It's a string, but you cannot pass the string directly. It's a string, so it will not be moved. We are borrowing it, and the function actually needs it, like it's like a convention to always use this instead of this, right? Okay, so we want a reference, not an own string. So what else does this function need? It needs a start value. So start is a U32 type. Okay, now start is optional, right? It's optional, but for this function to be fully to work properly, the start value needs to be passed. Either it's passed or it is going to be 1 like we did before. So here, either it's passed or it's going to be 1. Okay, so if this function is called, what does it return? Does it return something? Of course it does. So we need to also use the result, right? So if it's successful, it's going to print out our string, and it's going to number them. It's going to print this out and number them. Okay, each according to each line, goes through each of the lines and number them. So because it's not returning anything, just printing, we are going to use the unit type. So this just says something happened, but I'm not giving you what happened, but know that what you asked me to do, I did it. Okay, it's the unit type. It's nothing, but it tells you yes, an activity happened. So if there is a failure, because we are trying to read a file, so the failure will come from the system. So either the file does not exist, the file path is incorrect, permission to read the file not available. There could be so many reasons, right? So we are going to be returning an error as well. So I think it should be this error. So this is a pointer type that uniquely owns a heap allocation, because our error cannot be known at compile time. It's a dynamic error, so we do din error. So this is also coming from the standard library. It's a trait representing the basic expectations for error values. So this is what we are going to get. All of these things we are calling are being imported from the standard library. So that's why you have use standard library. We have the environment, we have the error, we have the process. Okay, so now we have the signature set up, the function signature set up. What do we do next? We need to try to read the file path and see if that works. So we always look at the error paths before we go downwards and handle the success path. So how do we access the file path and read the content? Let's say, we call it content. Let's say let content equal, we are going to access the file system using the standard library. There's a module called file system, or FS. So FS, right? We move down to this, as you can see, file system manipulation operations. We now hit enter. What do we need from here? We want to read to string. Let me read to string. Reads the entire contents of a file into a string. So there are other methods here. There are others, but this is what we need. Copy, create directory, exegesis. Once you look at it, you see a description of the function. Okay, but we want to use this, and as you can see, it also returns either a string or an error, right? So read to string expects a path as reference. So which path do we need? We need the file path, which is what the function requires. Okay, so once we pass the file path, we are going to use the question mark notation. So what this does is it simplifies error handling. Instead of doing match content, right? And say okay, let's say file. You now return string. You now return the file as a string. You wrap it as well. It's a lot of wrapping. You now return it or error. Okay, expected, yes, this is what it expects, but it doesn't make sense because there is a file here. So instead of all of this match, we use this question mark before the semicolon. So what this does is whatever error is gotten from here is immediately returned to the error part of return type. It propagates the error immediately. So it's like a short form of the long match that we are supposed to write, like this. Okay, it's shortened. So because this returns an error, we now say, okay, what if the file path was read successfully? What should we do? Now, what the function is supposed to do is it needs to go to the file path, and read each line, then add a number before the line till the end. So we say for, it's going to be a loop because it's repeatedly going to do something. So for line, right, for line in content dot, there's a method dot lines, right? For each of the lines in in the content. Yep. So this, if you, it returns an iterator over the lines of a string as string slices. So for line in content lines, okay, what should we do? We are just printing, okay. So what are we printing? We are printing the number followed by the line. So like we said before, it's going to be one dot like that, just numerically. So this is going to be the number, this is going to be the line, right? But now we have not used our start value, okay. This was already a reference to a string, okay, sorry. So let us have a counter. So we say let's start, okay, let's count equal to start. So our start value is this, but this is going to be changing in each iteration. So for each line, this start value is supposed to change. So we use the mute keyword to make it mutable, a mutable variable, reference or pointer. So so now we can say this should be the number, which is start. Then this should be the line, right? The line. So after taking the start value and printing it as a prefix to the line, what should we do? Increase the start value by 1. So we say okay, we have count plus equal count plus equal to 1. So after each iteration, we increase the count value. So at the end of everything, the lines will now be printed. So remember, this function requires us to the success value is just a unit type, nothing, just say something happened. So at the end of it, we're going to have this, okay, and let's save it. Sorry, count. This is supposed to be count, not start. Count, because this is that's the name of the variable. That was why it was underlined. I missed that. So read file is now ready. Now we are supposed to be testing most of this, but I know it's going to work. If there's any error, we'll correct it. But normally you're supposed to be testing as you are. Sorry, I'm supposed to clear this. Normally you're supposed to be testing as you are coding. Why is this not clear? Wonder why it's not clear. Cargo, okay. So the read file function has now been written. Let's call it in our main. Okay. So because read does not return anything, we are not going to be saving it as a variable. We are only just going to be checking if it's an error. So if it's an error, show us the error. Else, do what you are expected to do, which is to print to the standard output. So we say if, so this is if let, so it's comparing two things. So we say if error, let's call the error E. So if we call read, so what this does is it says if we call read file and what it returns is an error. That's what if let does. If the right hand side does this, is a comparison, an if statement. So if the right hand side, our read file does this, so if it's an error and we are giving the error a notation of E, it can be anything, but E is okay. So if this returns this, so the read file expects us to pass a file path and a start value. So we already have the file path here, we just have to pass it as a reference because that's what the function requires. Okay, this is not a reference but a string, so we borrow it. It expects a start value. Start is an integer, so an integer does not need the reference here because it has the copy type, copy trait. So if this is equal to this, what should we do? We show the error. We're still going to use the e print because this is an error, right? This is an error. So if it's an error, what should we do? We just show the error. Yep. So we call it E. So this is the error E. And then if it's an error, you print the error and then let's exit the program. Right? Yes. Let's exit the program. So now we are going to test. We don't have any error. So far. We are going to test this. Like I said, we have a file already. Let's go to our main. The file is in the root folder of our crates, right? You put it there, and then let's see. Let's first of all test cargo run. We're going to test the program without any extra arguments like start, just the file path. So the file path is groceries.txt. Okay, so that worked. You can see it started from 1, 2, 3 up to 17. The original file is not touched, it's not changed. It just does the reading, makes the changes on the fly and prints it. So if let's say we just have cargo run, no file paths, incomplete argument, you can have a different error, whatever you want, an error that is descriptive. So the program did not panic, it just showed us the error. Now let's try cargo run, the file paths, and then the starts without a start value. So no start value in argument, just like our function, no start value in argument here. So let's test with a start value. Let's say start from 10, right? You can see 10, 11, 12, 13 till the end. So if there is an error, the program still works properly, it does not panic, it just shows the clean error. If it works, it does the job. So yes, that is everything we need to do to make our program work. So let me just close this. So far we have been able to build this together. I hope it made sense. I hope I explained the steps properly and clearly. I'll be making another video as soon as possible when I move on to one of the projects I have in my to-dos. So thank you. If you watch up to this time, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm going to see you again some other time. Have a wonderful day ahead. Bye.